everybody. This should be a pretty straightforward session, but what I'm trying to do with this session is, hey, what are we gonna do now? Kiskit Fall Fest is over. We've learned a lot of cool things, but both how to stay involved with the quantum community, as well as like where to go to learn from here on. I'm gonna include some of my favorite learning resources, and we'll get into it. I'm gonna share these slides after, so you should be able to click on all the links and everything. But the Quantum Society for AI and Computation, that is the Quantum Computing Club here at UMKC. That's who's sponsoring this Kiskit Fall Fest. Tom and I and Avanov and others are members. We have around 50 or 60 people who are a member of this group right now, and it's really helpful. We put on some getting started sessions, which is kind of what this Kiskit Fall Fest has been, as well as we share news, we talk about new algorithms coming out, and help plan things like the hackathon. I always try to encourage everyone, please, please, please join the group. I don't spam people. I send out 1 or 2 emails a month, and you can come join us on the second Thursday of each month. I believe the next meeting will be December 11th. And so on December 11th, we'll get together, we'll talk about what's new in quantum computing. It's just a place for us to get together and ask each other questions. The Mizzou QIC, they have a Teams channel. They put on quite a bit of educational stuff. They have what they call Quantum Learning Buddies, which is a small mini course on quantum computing. Once or twice a year, they have a day-long quantum computing session. Mason Ullman and Tom Steinman went down there with me in September. We got to hear from people from industry. We heard from people from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. We heard from people from Moderna. They have people from IBM come down there. It's a really worthwhile event. They kind of have split-offs and sessions and stuff. And I met a lot of people who are doing interesting quantum work through the Quantum Innovation Center. So it's, most of the communication's done via that Teams channel. But that's also, Mizzou also has paid internships over the summer. They're going to announce it soon. And I want to think it includes a stipend of like $2,500 a month for undergrads and $7,500 a month for grads. So that's, another aspect that's going to be announced on that QIC. Kiskit Advocate. We've had some people asking about this. I'm a Kiskit Advocate. That's how I get access to a lot of the things that I do. It's a pretty good program as far as exposing you to educational resources, giving you chances to contribute. I'm a member of CAMP, where I'm working on subgraph isomorphism problems in quantum computing. There's monthly webinars. The barriers to entry would be that you have to complete the Basics of Quantum Information course. It's not easy, but if you take your time, I worked my way through it a couple hours a morning on a Saturday for several months. You'll have to refresh yourself on some linear algebra, some probability, and start digging into how quantum information works. This course has been largely high level, getting the broad view of these things, but as far as how to construct these circuits, how to represent them mathematically, which is what you're going to need as you go applying this towards real problems. So if you're considering quantum computing, I highly recommend looking into that Kiskit Advocate program. It's a great program, and I've always feel free to reach out with me about any information on that. All right, I'm going to dig into some learning. A great introduction to like the mathematics and how quantum computing works is this site called quantum.country. It's kind of a read-through essay that has check your understanding little questions along the way. Takes a few hours to work through. A lot of times, if someone catches me unprepared or I don't have time to meet with them immediately, I suggest they go to quantum.country and read through it. And there, they're going to do a better job of explaining how we represent qubits and gates and the mathematics behind it. But it's if you know like what you learn in the first 2 weeks of linear algebra, how to multiply vectors, how to apply matrices, and if you understand a little bit of probability, it's a really approachable place to start. John Preskill's lecture notes. I'll get to the IBM Quantum Learning Platform here in a bit, but if you're really wanting to dig into the quantum information theory, he has 24 videos that are online along with the full notes. And John Preskill is just kind of one of the godfathers of quantum computing. He's been teaching it for years and years, has pretty good information. If you want just to sit and watch videos and take notes or pay attention like that, that's how you want to learn, I highly recommend this. The textbook. There's other textbooks out there. The person who teaches the basics of quantum information for IBM Quantum, John Watrous, he has his own quantum information textbook. But a lot of times, whenever you hear people talk about, a quantum computing textbook, this is the one you'll see. Quantum Computation and Quantum Information by Nielsen and Chuang. This is the fundamental textbook. I recommend having it, but it is dense. It's a lot to work through. Over 1,000 pages. I would highly recommend, if you're going into this field, getting it, or like referencing the PDF. But I would recommend pairing this with some like Preskill's lectures, the IBM Quantum Learning. But it is a great reference. Ronald DeWolf has a quantum computing course that also has a lot of videos along with it. There's 60 or 51 videos associated with Ronald DeWolf's course. If you want another kind of university style course with someone giving the lecture and you prefer that audiovisual format, I highly recommend that. And they also have his notes, which is about 200 or 300 pages long, but it's a lot easier to work through and understand at first than like that quantum computing textbook. Ronald DeWolf's course is also very good. Okay, and then the IBM Quantum Learning Platform. Some good things with the IBM Quantum Learning Platform is, one is they're constantly keeping it up to date. The reason they don't make a textbook, or they don't, make tons and tons of these video playlists and stuff online is because it's changing rapidly. But hey, if you want to code in Qiskit and you want to learn quantum computing, it's kind of hard to recommend anything besides the IBM Quantum Learning course. They're going, every couple weeks, I see them update a new tutorial or update an existing course with newer methods. As far as keeping you on the cutting edge, it's great. But also with all these things, I like having a variety of resources available to me, because sometimes the Basics Quantum Information course isn't doing it for me, and I need to reference, the textbook, or I'll see if John Preskill's talked about this topic, and so I can hop around to DeWolf, to Preskill, to John Watrous, to, these other sources, and help me fill out this topic that's a little difficult. Because quantum computing is difficult. It's often at the intersection of, there's a lot of linear algebra, there's a lot of this logic going on with it, not to mention the problem you're solving, you have to learn the domain knowledge there. Anybody who's really doing quantum computing is in a highly interdisciplinary field, and it's not easy. So like, don't feel discouraged if you look at this and you're like, oh, I'm not getting it the first time. That's how it's supposed to be. It's quantum computing. Now, that being said, like, I'm quite confident all of you can get it, but it's one of those things that you may not get it the first go. Also, just make something. It's one of those things that you're not going to get good at programming in Qiskit. You're not going to get good at understanding how these quantum circuits work if you don't just make something. If you, try out some quantum machine learning. And it's one of those things, is your first project going to be great? Are you going to fully understand everything you're doing? No, but like if you intersperse that, okay, I watched some lectures, I think I understand this a little bit, let me try to make something with this. In some of the early days, I introduced the IBM Quantum Composer. If you haven't messed with that, that's also great, where you're understanding how these states change in things. And like as you learn Qiskit, you can use the Qiskit visualization tools to like, all right, make your circuit and then plot the block vector and see what it does, and then add a gate and plot the block vector again. It's a great way to start understanding how this works. It's really hard to learn things in a vacuum without making something, doing something with it. So, you know, use the textbook, use IBM Quantum Learning, watch John Preskill's videos, but, you know, take that information, and while you're processing it and it's fresh, you need to make something with it, and otherwise it's just kind of floats away. You know, I've forgotten far more things than I remember. But those are some of the basics of how to get involved. We have the Quantum Computing Club, we have the Missouri Quantum Innovation Center, we have Qiskit, and there's a lot of learning resources out there. The IBM Quantum Learning Platform is great. A lot of it's, you know, largely text. There's, you know, they try to make a lot of videos and stuff, but like I really recommend pair that with, you know, the Nielsen Chuang textbook. You know, watch a John Preskill video. You know, and if you're just starting your quantum journey, like that quantum.country is great. You know, a Saturday afternoon, sit there and read through it, and it will give you like, okay, here's how these qubits are represented, and here's what happens when I take a qubit in state 0 and I pass it through a Hadamard gate, like the math behind how this happens and how we're representing it. I think that's it for this session. Do we have any questions? All right, I'm not seeing anyone typing. By request from the first session, the last session of the entire Qiskit Fall Fest, I'm going to be just kind of talking about how I go about approaching quantum problems. I kind of have an entire little checklist of how I start and how I do these things, because it's you know, probably not ideal to just try to throw together a 100 qubit quantum circuit and hope it works. So I'll detail some of that at 2 o'clock. But otherwise, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great day.